Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them, and we always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, X-Men Ten of Swords Creation #1. So this is the first official part of the Ten of Swords crossover. That's right, a 22-part crossover that entails 3 one-shots, starting with Creation, and every X-Men book out there. I know, it's obnoxious, it's ridiculous, but this was an awesome comic book. I freaking loved it. Last week, I was blown away by Excalibur #12 and X-Men #12. They directly lead into this issue. They're quite essential to understanding some of the stuff in this issue, or at least knowing a little bit more about it. But you could just jump right in here, and it catches you up on everything that's been going on that's relevant to this story. This is a very apocalypse-centric story, which Apocalypse is my favorite X-Men villain. This is written by Jonathan Hickman and Tini Howard. Tini Howard's been using Apocalypse in the pages of Excalibur, and the main thrust of the Excalibur story with Apocalypse has led into this. And then little seeds that Hickman had planted early in the pages of his X-Men run, it all explodes in this, and I loved it. This was a vast, ambitious, giant story. It's $6.99. There's a lot of comic book here, a lot of meat to bite into, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of different things. You got the whole idea of the Ten of Swords. You got this great, interesting, like, tarot card interpretation of the events. You got ultimate betrayal. You got Apocalypse being badass. You got Krakoa being set up to maybe be not always on the side of the mutants. And you also have mutant history redefined. Now, like I said, this all started last week in X-Men 12 and Excalibur 12, but you could just jump right into this. But man, this is awesome. This was so freaking cool. First of all, the writing is very well done. It is incredibly ambitious. You got some graphs, you got some charts, you got some tarot card interpretations. You get all that kind of fun stuff in here, but also you just got great events, some great moments that are very impactful, especially because you got Pepe Larraz back on the artwork. That's right, Larraz was the artist on House of X. Now, does this feel as big as House of X or Powers of 10? I think that's near impossible because those literally changed everything. Like on one page about everything we knew about the X-Men. This does the same kind of thing, but more to the history of mutants, more to the history of Apocalypse. In this issue, you do see the original 4 Horsemen. They're right there. They're badass. They have a very striking look. I freaking loved this book. I love the coloring, Marte Gracia, the lettering, everything about it worked top notch. Now, is this ultimately going to pay off? Is it necessary to go into every single X-Men book? I don't know. We shall find out in the weeks to come. But judging what was set up in this first issue, I think it's Hickman's issues of X-Men and the one-shots that are the most important thing, and we'll definitely keep an eye on that as the weeks progress. But I love this issue. It was the first time that I stood up and paid attention to the X-Men in a while since House of X, Powers of 10. The books have been kind of a little bit on a lull, but I knew that Hickman was dropping seeds. Everybody else is planning their own stuff, doing their own stories, and now it's erupting here in Ten of Swords. This isn't capturing everything. There's a whole lot going on in Hickman's X-Men world right now, aided by all the amazing creators that are doing the other books, but this was so much fun, and for the big first crossover since House of X and Powers of 10, I was incredibly satisfied. Like I said, I'm a big Apocalypse fan. There's some great Apocalypse moments in here. There's some great moments involving his original Horsemen, just the idea of what's going on, this other island, Araco, who's trying, Krakoa wants to reunite with this island. They used to be one island, but there's something going on, and you got other world in between, and it's just, there's a lot going on, and I find it incredibly fascinating with dynamic, kinetic artwork. And I loved it. Ten of Swords, Creation #1. The pick of the week. Also in the X-Men world, we have Juggernaut #1. Finally seeing release. It's been a while. We've been waiting on this one. It's written by Fabian Nicieza. It's got amazing artwork by Ron Garney. I freaking love the artwork in here. The book itself is okay. It's actually not a bad script. It's a decent exploration on Kane Marco, what he's doing now. He's working for damage control. He's not trying to be a hero, but he's also not trying to be an a-hole at the same time, right? So I really like the artwork. I thought it was super cool. I really like Juggernaut's new outfit. They're throwing some things in the past, trying to make some connections, connect the dots, fill in some holes and some gaps. But ultimately, I thought it was pretty solid. This is just like a 5 or 6 issue miniseries, so it's not going to be too much of an investment. It's not super essential to the overall flow of what's going on in Krakoa and Hickman's world of the X-Men. But Juggernaut #1 was actually pretty solid, and I did enjoy it. It's nice to see Fabian back on a Marvel comic book. We have the Immortal She-Hulk #1. It's a one-shot. This is not the start of a new series. This is a one-shot. However, it's pretty fantastic. I really liked it. I thought it was super cool. I think the story is called The Three Deaths of Jennifer Walters, yeah. Why did I question myself? Of course it was Walters. I knew that. Anyway, after the revelations at the end of Empire by Al Ewing that She-Hulk is also an immortal Hulk, just as like every other gamma-radiated hero and villain out there, right? The Green Door and all that kind of stuff. They're basically explaining it. The 3 different times that she's actually died and how she came back and her experiences in the down below, right? But it's also setting up some really interesting stuff involving the leader, involving Bruce's father, stuff that's been building up in the pages of Immortal Hulk. So it's all in there as well. Is this super essential if you're a fan of the Immortal Hulk? I wouldn't say super essential, but I would say damn near essential because it does throw in a little bit of hints about the leader's upcoming plan, but it's basically just kind of connecting Jennifer and the She-Hulk to the whole what's going on in Immortal Hulk right now, and I thought it did a pretty decent job. Before we get to Venom, let's get to Maestro, but keep it Hulk-themed. Maestro #2 was great. Really liked it. I loved the first issue, and I'm very surprised that I loved the second issue. This is really good stuff. Peter David's one of the most consistent writers in comic books, and he's been that way for literally decades at this point. Herman Peralta's artwork is absolutely fantastic. I am just fascinated by his line work. The coloring is great. Del Keown is on here for like a 2 or 3 page story at the very end, kind of inconsequential, but I liked it and it's fun. I think if you like the first issue, you're going to like the second. This seems like it's going to be a pretty cool miniseries, basically explaining how the Hulk becomes the Maestro, and there's a little bit more to it than we initially thought, and I do like it. Maestro #2, out this week. You'll also notice that Marvel has these tributes to Chadwick Boseman across the top of many of their books this week. I think that's pretty dope. Venom #28 is here. You know I'm a cover A guy, but I gotta get these cover Bs because I love the Stegman covers. That's a great one. So Venom #28. Decent issue, solid story. We're continuing the Venom Beyond story. Dylan and Eddie are thrown into the multiverse. They're in a world that's ruled by this dude named Codex. Virus got thrown in there as well. Everybody's manipulated by symbiotes. Codex is the leader. They all work for Null, it seems, or something like that. So it's kind of like a terrifying vision of a what-if future for Eddie and for Dylan. And I think that's really cool. What's really big about issue #28, and it's a decent chapter in this story, which has been pretty fun. But this 100% lets you know who Virus is and who Codex is. So all of your questions, all of your guesses, you get to know 100% in Venom #28. And Donny Cates, once again, handles the script, handles those big revelations very well. The artwork in this one is not my favorite. I've been in and out. One, Gideon, we are spoiled by having Ryan Stegman on the majority of these issues. I'm going to say that. But knowing that he's getting ready and gearing up for King in Black, I understand why he's not on these pages. But it loses something. It gets a bit cluttered. It gets a bit clunky. It gets a bit too speedy at times. Too compressed. Too dense in the artwork to help the flow of the story when there's a lot of revelation and a little bit of exposition. But overall, still liked it. Venom #28, a ballin' ass issue. We got Daredevil #22 here. Kind of like the Venom one, a great continuation of the story. Maybe less so because there weren't any super revelatory moments in Daredevil #22, but it's a good, solid, strong issue written by Chip Zdarsky. This has been, along with Venom and Thor, one of Marvel's best comic books all 2020 long. But the artwork in this one by Mobili is okay. We're spoiled once again by Marco Cicchetto on this artwork. So the artwork was okay, a bit inconsistent at times, but overall I thought the issue was solid. I thought it was fine. It's not going to blow you away like most issues of Daredevil have been. In fact, at times it maybe verges a little bit on cheesy and corny, but that's because it's so connected to this old school classic Marvel feel. And I'm not shitting on the book or nothing. I like this book. I thought it was good. The artwork could have been a little bit better. Maybe someone a little bit stronger to fill in the shoes of Chichetto when he's off the book. But overall, I did like it. I like the progression in the story. I'm excited to see how this is going to unfold. Chip Zdarsky's been doing a great job on that book. Fantastic Four Antithesis #2. Let's talk about this. I read issue #1, and I was like, you know what? I'm a big fanboy of the Fantastic Four, a fan four fanboy, if you will. So sure, let's check it out, right? I pretty much pick up anything with the Four logo on it. And it's Neil Adams. It's Neil Adams drawing the Fantastic Four. We've never really seen that, so that's exciting. And Mark Waid's helping him write the script, so I think that's going to help it not feel so absurd and weird and disjointed like some of his stuff can be. I really liked issue #2. I thought it was great. I thought issue #1 was okay. Issue #2 was better than issue #1. Neil Adams' artwork usually feels like the artwork of a veteran past his prime, nearing the end of his career. I mean, and there's no fault for that. Like, there's a reason for that, right? But man, the control that Neil Adams has on his layouts, on his line work, the dynamic energy that he throws into those layouts and that line work really show forth in this story. It's a story set back in the day a little bit. It's about Galactus, about this new guy, Antithesis. He's kind of like he's the antithesis of Galactus, if you will. But it's been a fun story. It's great. It's nothing super game-changing. It's not going to have too much of an impact on things. But overall, I liked it, and I thought it was pretty solid, and it pleased this Fantastic Four fanboy. Doctor Doom #7 is here. Y'all know me, I haven't been liking this Doctor Doom series. This was one of the better issues yet. We're kind of starting this new vibe, this new jazz, this new story. It's still they're still dealing with some of the stuff from the previous story, and that's the bits that I don't really like. But there's some great Doom moments in here, like him riding a bear, him feeding somebody to a bear. There's some really great moments, but there's also just some really clunky moments where, once again, I just feel... And here's the thing. Is Doctor Doom a bad book? Is it a mischaracterization of Victor? Or am I just that sucker who feels like I know this character more than this creator does? Because that's honestly what I feel. Now, maybe that's my fault. Sometimes we just got to let it go, accept it, and try to enjoy the ride. And I'm really trying to do that, but I'm just not. There's some parts in here that I really do like. There's some really great Doom badass moments. But overall, I don't think Christopher Cantwell quite gets Victor. But maybe that's my own hang-up. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Spider-Man #4 is here. Holy cow, yeah, the one written by J.J. Abrams and his son Henry, with Sarah Pichelli on the artwork. Now, I don't know if it's the Abrams that are delaying this book or Pichelli. I bet it's the combination of both. Most people thought this book just ceased to exist. It's a 5-issue series, so this is the penultimate issue. It's a story, it's an Elseworlds type story about the son of Peter Parker and Mary Jane in the future, kind of dealing with some craziness. And the first issue was really cool because it had a nice bait and switch. That was really neat. I thought that was cool. And issue #2 and 3, I remember kind of being like a little bit lackluster, but this issue was kind of whack to me. I did not really like it at all. It was really melodramatic in a bad way. Some of the dialogue from the villains, Cadaverous, was a bit... Like, I don't mind when they do the stuttery dialogue and you're trying to really get us into the flow of it, but it just did not work for me on this character. The artwork by Pichelli was great. Some of the best artwork I've seen from her in recent years, but the story's just not doing it for me. I'm not really digging it. It feels cliche. It feels obvious. It feels simple, to be honest. I'm just not liking it. Spider-Man #4, there's only one issue left, and maybe we'll see that in 2021. I have no idea. Spider-Man Noir #4 is here. But these are my thoughts on this book. I love the artwork. Juan Ferreira's artwork is beautiful, and we got these amazing double-page spreads with crazy action on it, great motion and fluid movement. But man, the story is so cliche, and I know that that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to be this really cliche, like 40s style adventure detective noirish type thing. But man, it's just so freaking cheesy, so hard to get through the story for me. And I thought it got a little bit easier in issue #3. I liked issue #3 before it kind of gets back into Dullsville, but the art is so freaking brilliant. Juan Ferreira on a Blade book now. In fact, I have a 5-year plan. I would love to work with Juan. Let's jump over to DC. First up, we've got Dark Knight's Death Metal Speed Metal #1. This is a one-shot. There's no new issue of Metal proper in September, but there are these one-shots. We already had Trinity Crisis. We got Doom Metal starting in Justice League last week. Now we got Josh Williamson doing Speed Metal. So if you remember, in issue #3 of Death Metal, there's a moment where the Flashes are all being chased by the Darkest Night. And then, right, that's where this story continues. Now, just like Trinity Crisis, this gets to a point at the end where the story almost comes full circle. So if you miss this, you will not necessarily miss the entire gist of what's going on, but you will be like, when did he show up? When did that show up? How'd they get that? How did it happen? This is how you do an event. This is how you do event tie-ins. You make them just necessary enough. This is incredibly fulfilling if you're reading Death Metal. It's absolutely fantastic. And I would say it's damn near necessary. I would say it's 97.998% necessary. You could skip right through here and start reading Death Metal at issue #4 in October, but you would be like, how did they get that? How did that person show up? You're going to get that in the pages of here. Plus, this is Josh Williamson's final statement on Wally West, because I can't really review this one without talking about this one. Flash 762 is out this week. This is Josh Williamson's final issue of The Flash. And wow, it's incredibly powerful. It's incredibly moving. The artwork by Howard Porter is so full of motion and kinetically charged movement. It is absolutely fantastic, and I loved it. I love this statement that Josh Williamson had made. Out of all of the DC stuff since 2016, since Rebirth started, Josh Williamson's Flash has been the most consistent, the most exciting, and the most improved book. It's gotten better as it's gone on. And I'm going to be very sad to see this creative team leave this book, because it's been an explosive, nuanced, and just filled with meaning and action. It's like you don't always get superhero comic books like Josh Williamson's Flash, but I'm glad that we did. It's a great cover. We're wrapping up this whole Reverse Flash Flash battle. This is Joshua Williamson's final statement on Barry Allen, and it's a strong, bold, exciting statement. And if that's the final statement on Barry, this is his final statement on Wally. Wally has gone through the ringer over the last 4 years since Rebirth, and it's not Joshua Williamson's fault. He even addresses that in this book, where it feels like the editors, nobody knew what to do with Wally once they brought him back, and he just kind of languished around out there, and then poor decisions were made with the character. Well, Josh Williamson's actually been trying to course correct some of that stuff, and now we've got Wally set up as being the hero that he's meant to be and who he should have been in the pages of Speed Metal. These two books, I almost did a co-pick of the week. Seriously, because just that's how impactful and how amazing Josh Williamson's Flash run has been, and I'm going to be very sad to see it go. Suicide Squad #9 is here. Great cover. One of the covers of the week. Not my cover of the week, though. We'll get to that in a little bit. But Suicide Squad #9, what a great issue. Tom Taylor's just been killing it. Rendondo's artwork is amazing. It's got a sleek, cool, sophisticated style to it, but at the same time still being a goofy yet nuanced take on the Suicide Squad. We only got 2 issues left after this. I'm going to be very sad. You see that the cover kind of teases the death of Deadshot. I don't believe all the hype. However, I've read this book and it's really good. Some great moments. There's a couple kooky moments here and there, but it's what Tom Taylor really does. He is just itching to be on some super mainstream book at DC or Marvel right now. A Batman, Detective Comics, Superman, Spider-Man, something big, something like Tom Taylor is such a great creator. And one of the things that I love about him so much is he can have a book be free, fun, energetic, humorous, but at the same time, tragic, bold, daring, exceptional, stylistic. It's very stylish. His writing has a style to it that combines with the artistic style on Suicide Squad to just make a product that's absolutely brilliant. I got to give a mad shout out to Bob from Everything Comics. He's the one that kept encouraging me to check this one out after I gave up after a couple issues, because it's easy for me to give up on a book with Harley Quinn, but I'm going to tell you this. Having read every single issue of Tom Taylor's Suicide Squad, if he wrote a Harley Quinn story, I'd probably 100% be into that, because nowhere in this book has Harley been annoying or obnoxious to me. I've loved it. Just the right amount of silliness with the right amount of realness. And that's what Tom Taylor does. And he does it in a great, explosively fun and sophisticatedly tragic kind of way at times. And this was a great issue that really, after what's been built up for the last few issues, it hits even harder. I want to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below. Justice League Dark is here with issue number 26. Man, Ron V's really coming into his own on this book, but he's also, of course, is still dealing with the leftovers from James Tynion's run. James Tynion never intended to leave this book, but when Batman continued to be twice a month, he had to let go of it, and even though it saddened him, he was really happy for Ron V to come in. Ron V has been treating this book majestically. Ron V is one of my favorite writers in the industry right now. He's a part of my favorite writer collective out there right now. White Noise, Alex, Dan, Ryan, and Ron, they do such amazing work. Justice League Dark is something else. It's great. So he's really ramping up towards the end of this whole Upside Down Man type stuff. I would really hope that this book continues on. There have been a lot of rumblings and rumors that it's going to be one of the ones getting cut when DC starts making more of their cuts, and that's sad. But I would like to see Ron V have like a good 20 to 40 issues on this, doing and building up his own story. But the way that he's wrapping up Tynion's story that was started is still in his own voice and identity, but very satisfying, even for those who have been reading it since issue number 1. The artwork's great, the story's great, the characters work, it pops. V's one of the best, so is Justice League Dark. Shazam is here, issue number 15. It's the final issue of Shazam, and it's kind of bittersweet. Why? Well, Jeff Johns' run ended last issue, and it was a great, solid story that he did with the whole 7 magical worlds, 7 secrets of Shazam, whatever the hell that story was called. In the midst of that, Jeff Loveness did a fill-in or two, right? And they were really good. And this one's really good. And it really sucks because I would have liked to see Jeff Loveness take on the book, have control of the direction, and see what he could do. Jeff Loveness, by the way, is the writer of 2 of my favorite Boom books, Judas and Strange Skies, over East Berlin. And yes, Jay Strick, I almost sang that, seriously, because your song's been stuck in my head. Anyway, Jeff Loveness is now an Emmy award-winning writer because he wrote the Vat of Acid episode of Rick and Morty, which just recently won an Emmy. Anyway, this was a great fill-in issue of Shazam, and he's able to handle it. I would really have liked to see what he could do with this character moving forward, but alas, the bigwigs at Warner Brothers and DC said, nope, that book's done. Batman Superman number 12 is here. This book has no direction, has no purpose. It's got a purpose. The purpose of this book is to put Batman and Superman in one book, to have a title that says Batman and Superman, and sell more comics. That's the purpose of this. This is pretty much the purpose of every damn World's Finest book they've done in the modern era. Seriously, even the Jeff Loeb stuff that started off great just became a collection of just meaningless but sometimes okay stories, but just no direction. Nothing moving it forward. Nothing keeping me engaged. This book relies on Batman and Superman being the draw. Oh, I'm going to get it because it's a Batman-Superman book. Well, that ain't always going to be enough for me. And Josh Williamson's a more capable creator, but I just feel like editorial's not giving anybody that works on this at any time over the last 20 years any kind of actual, let's do something. Have a direction, have a plan. Let's have a 3-year plan. Let's have a 4-year plan. 5-year plan. Let's do something with it. Instead, this is just going to wind up being a collection of stories. It'll get canceled at some point, and it will just kind of fade away in time, like Batman Superman, the Jeff Loeb one, that started so strong. Who remembers or talks about that run now? Oh, that entire Batman Superman run was great. No, we don't say that about any of them. Seriously. Batgirl number 49 is here. Continuing the Joker War tie-in, which is not a Joker War tie-in. This is not essential to the Joker War. Don't get fooled. I'm not liking this. Now, I know that Batgirl's nearing its end. I think it's got one more issue left. They're dealing with a lot of stuff involving the Gordon family. Now, I liked the last issue. I thought it was interesting. You have James Jr., you have Jim Gordon, and you got Barbara, and they're kind of all ostracized from each other, and they're doing their own thing and whatnot, and I thought that was decent. But in this issue, it lost me. It was so clunky. It was so disjointed. It was so ridiculous. I don't like some of the story decisions and some of the decisions made about certain characters. I really did not like this issue. Batman 49. Batgirl 49, I should say. Action Comics 1025. Another DC comic I did not like this week. First of all, that's a stupid cover. This is so ridiculously dumb. I mean, you may have an invisible mafia, but I have a super family. That sums up Bendis' Action Comics. the entire thing has been about this invisible mafia storyline, and now that it started off being built up really great. There's this thing called the invisible mafia in Metropolis, and they know how to do crimes that Superman doesn't notice. They pay attention to when he's out of town. They have certain words that they won't say. They do their business in a certain way that Superman's never known they've existed, and they slowly creep over and take control of the Daily Planet. And then it's all getting wrapped up super quick. Super quick, all of a sudden, without the emotional weight, without the gravitas that the story does. They killed a character in the last issue, and they're dealing with it right here. And it's just like, where's the ramifications? Where's the true? Like, it's in the story, the ramifications and the emotion, but I'm not feeling it. And Bendis has not made me feel his Superman book since the very earliest days of him writing it, and it's been a fault. But he's ending it in December. So might as well just stick with it. Aquaman number 63 is here. Yet another fill-in. We're in the big finale of whatever Kelly Sue DeConnick's doing. We got the wedding of Mira and Volko going on, and Aquaman's involved, like all this craziness. And then they just throw in these like 2 filler stories written by somebody else with different artwork by somebody else that's focusing on a side mission that Aqualad has, Jackson Aqualad, during the whole thing. I don't like it when they do those kind of things. This has been kind of silly and dumb, melodramatic, and it just never really captured me. And the Aquaman direction, which I like Kelly Sue's run at first, there are parts of it I really like, but it's starting to lose me. But maybe it's just because, like, it's tedious to get through these kind of issues. Like, I get back to her and see what's going on. But her, I don't know. Aquaman's just not something I'm digging. Let's jump over to Boom Studios. We have a new one called Unkindness of Ravens. And Unkindness of Ravens, number 1 from Boom Studios. This was okay. It was decent. It had decent artwork. It had a decent story. It had a decent introduction to the stories. It was just decent. The basic premise is, think of it like Mean Girls meets The Craft. That's basically it. You got a new girl at school. She has a striking resemblance to a recently missing student of that school. They even give her the same locker. Then you got this group of like witches, The Craft, and then you got this group of, preppy, mean girls, and she's kind of caught in the middle of it. It's okay. It's interesting, but here's the thing. If something from Boom is a new number 1, and it's okay, and it's decent, and it's average, they're losing me. Why? Because Boom has been doing such exceptional work, especially with their new number 1s. Think about 7 Secrets. Think about Something is Killing the Children. Think about Red Mother, Once and Future. Think about We Only Find Them When They're Dead. Very flamboyantly explosive and exciting first issues. This is just okay. It didn't really grab me super much. I'll probably keep reading it because it wasn't a bad comic book, but it was just decent. And to me, Boom has set themselves up so much that just decent ain't good enough. And unfortunately, that's how I felt about An Unkindness of Ravens. It was okay. And I hope to see the story go a little bit further than just the typical idea of Mean Girls meets The Craft. But we shall see. We have Wynd number 4, though. Holy cow, this book is awesome. Wynd is great. If Wynd has not been on your radar because the first issue didn't blow you away like it didn't blow me away. The first issue didn't really do much for me, but it's been getting better and better ever since. Now, James Tynion and Dialinus, they created this as a graphic novel. It was supposed to all come out as one story. And that's the reason why I think it wasn't quite so captivating at first, because in a graphic novel, you have the luxury of that time to build into the story. Issue 4 has been the best issue yet. This is a series that's getting better, and I'm really liking it. I like the crisp artwork with a little bit of grit to it. I like the fantasy setting. I like the subtext of the story about being different in a world that doesn't accept things that are different, or people or lifestyles that are different. So that's some great subtext there. But just the humanity that's brought by Tynion into this story is amazing. And just like Something is Killing the Children, the artwork by Dialinus is so perfect at working with James Tynion's scripts. The way that they can break down into smaller, more multiple panel pages to help that dialogue flow even better. Now, Tynion's scripting is getting better, but the artists that he's choosing to work with are getting even better, adapting towards his style of writing and making the book such an amazing experience. You got Aditya Bidikar, the best letterer in the industry, and all together, this is a great book, and it might just be one of the best of 2020. Let's keep an eye out. I think we only got 1 or 2 issues left, but I'm excited. It's still $4.99. It's extra size. There's a lot to this comic book, and I love it. Also from Boom, Power Rangers, Draken, New Dawn. New Gone? It's Dragdawn, New Gone. What? Anyway, Draken, New Dawn, number 2 of 3. So, since it's only a 3-issue series, you gotta kind of really get going. It's a very dense comic book that a lot happens. A lot of character work, a lot of interesting stuff. You find out who it is, who's the mysterious ranger that was in that, shielded suit that he couldn't get out of or whatever. You find out who that is, but it adds a new dimension and a wrench into the spokes of the turning wheel. Because basically what this is about is now that Draken's been defeated, the world that Draken comes from, the coinless universe we can call it, needs a leader. You've got all these people fighting that need some kind of leadership. And so Kimberly, the Ranger Slayers, decided that she's going to be the new Draken, the new dawn of Draken. And she's going to take care of it. She comes across some real big conflicts in issue number 2. I liked it. I thought it was great. It's not as solid as some of the Spider-Man. As some of the Power Rangers books have been over the last few years, but it's still pretty good, and I'm liking it, and I'm sure that they're building stuff in this book that will reverberate out into the larger Power Rangers universe, because you just know that the Power Rangers comic books can't let Draken and Ranger Slayer go in the coinless universe, right? Let's jump over to Image. We got Gideon Falls, issue number 25. Wow. What an amazing issue of Gideon Falls. First of all, you have some really great, innovative, and experimental artwork by Andrea Sorrentino and colorist Dave Stewart. That is something we have come to expect from Gideon Falls. So, unfortunately, it doesn't seem to make too much of an impact when Gideon Falls is just so incredibly groundbreaking and innovative with its story structure and how they tell the story and the composition and the layouts. But this book is beautiful and brilliant. They explain a lot about the alternate timelines, the multiversal language. They explain all this kind of stuff, and it just starts hitting to a head. Now, we only have a couple issues left, and I am sad to see this book go, but I'm also very excited to see this book come to its natural and organic conclusion. Lemire is a hell of a writer, one of the best writers in the industry. He has been pretty much the best writer over the last several years. Everything he touches has this style that he has, this like bittersweet yet hopeful melancholy that runs throughout, and I love it. And this is true horror that is very effective. And the way that Sorrentino and Stewart combine their talents with Lemire's talents to create this very cohesive, amazingly imaginative, incredibly innovative world and story just blows me away every single time this book comes out. It's going to be... The comic book shelves will be severely lacking without Gideon Falls on shelves in 2021, but we know that we got more coming from Lemire and Sorrentino and Stewart because it's just a no-brainer. I loved the hell out of that issue. I almost thought about making it the pick of the week. It's definitely a top 5. Pay attention to my top 10. Find out where exactly it lands Thursday morning. Undiscovered Country, number 8 is here. I'm loving this book more and more. This is another book that keeps getting better. It's basically taking all the tropes and ideas of a classic, fun fantasy fairy tale. A Wizard of Oz type thing, a Lord of the Rings type thing, a Hobbit type thing, a Narnia type thing, but planting it in a dystopian, futuristic, sci-fi America. So amazing. You know the story. America's closed itself off for like 30 plus years, but some crazy wackiness has happened inside. And not only, so there are different realms within the US now, and they have to travel the spiral road, and they have to hit each and every one of these realms, and each realm is different. And now we get to meet or find out and discover more about the Unity. Man, this has got some really crazy cool ideas, some crazy cool concepts, and it's just a crazy cool book. This book got a little bit meandering for a while in its first arc. It felt a little bit like maybe it would just kind of dud out, but no, they've really ramped it up in these last couple issues. This second story arc is starting super strong. It's a very great world that they have built, and it's really, really cool. It's familiar, yet it's cool. It's basically like one of those fantasy classics, like I mentioned, like Oz or Narnia or Middle Earth. It's like something like that, but based on American mythology. in American history, and I really freaking love it. I think it's a great interpretation of that. I'm loving it. Undiscovered Country #8. It's winning me over. The Goddamned, The Virgin Brides, issue #3. It's a pretty solid issue, pretty decent. I am itching to get back to Kane and what's going on, but you get the idea in issue #3 that they're still building. That maybe they'll do a few miniseries to build up something and then do a big story leading up to the flood. That's the idea that I get. This is antediluvian times. That means that it's pre-flood, it's biblical, it's brutal, it's horrific. It is horrific. I grew up, and in my middle school and high school years, I was a legitimate scholar of the Bible. I was training to be a pastor, to be a preacher, to be somebody who would, I studied the hell out of this. So I am very familiar with the world in which these books are set in, and to do it in such a brutal and horrific nature, it is so true to the idea of some of those original stories and concepts, and it makes it incredibly chilling to me, and I really love it. This is a violent, brutal book that holds nothing back, and the way it relates to today's world and society blows me away, and I'm loving it. Jason Aaron, R.M. Guerra, Julia Brusco. That's one of the most raw books you're going to find, and I'm loving it. Bliss #3 is here. This is a book that has me up and down. I start every issue of Bliss confused as hell, but by the time I get to the end of it, I feel like I've taken the drug Bliss itself and I've forgotten all about the confusion, and I'm just enjoying the ride. I really like Sean Lewis as a creator. He's a really solid writer. Caitlin Yarsky's pencil artwork is pretty solid, and it's decent. And I applaud them for having a book that doesn't necessarily stay on my mind in between reading, but once I start reading, it pulls me right back into it. There's some really crazy cool stuff going on in the pages of Bliss. There's this drug. It makes people forget. It makes people happy. That's what drugs do. We all have our drug, right? But it's telling two stories, and one of them is about this dad and his son, and it's really hard to explain. Even now, I can't just easily define this book for you, but I can just tell you that every time I read it, it re-engages me, and it feels like I'm discovering it anew for the first time. So I'm down to check out, see what Bliss is about, because I like Sean Lewis so much. I really, really respect and trust him as a creator. Let's jump over to Vault. We got a new Nightfall book. That's right. It's fall time again. Happy equinox. We have the Autumnal, #1 from Vault Comics. It's a new horror comic in the Nightfall line. This is every Halloween, fall time, they release some Halloween horror-themed books, right? This is a pretty interesting book. It didn't quite completely capture me. Now, I've been sent issue #2, and I need to read that, because a lot of Vault books, they're kind of dedicated to go a little bit more long-term than they had been. So I don't know if this one is going to be like a 5er or a 6er or an 8er or a 9er or a 10er or whatever, or 12er or whatever. I don't know. But it's an interesting setup. The characters work. The subtext is there. The artwork looks amazing. It's Chris Sheehan, Jason Wordie, Jim Campbell, and it's Daniel Kraus is the writer. Daniel Kraus was the writer of Shape of Water, Troll Waters, and the Living Dead book that just came out that he co-wrote, I guess, basically with George A. Romero, basically off of his notes or whatever. So Kraus does a good job of setting up the story. The artwork is amazing. There's nothing about the artwork that's not to die for. But the story didn't quite get far enough to completely hook me in. I would maybe suggest that Vault does the occasional super extra-sized first issue, because it seems like a lot of Vault books here lately have been grabbing me at issue #2. And so maybe you need to find a way, and I'm not telling them how to make comics, because they're making comics and I'm just talking about them. But if you could get the engagement that I get from a 1 and a 2 chunked together, like on a #1, I think we could have some more long-term success in some of these series. Autumnal #1 is decent at grabbing you, but I feel like they're going to really get me in issue #2. I feel like something special is brewing in the pages of this book. It's a horror comic book. It's about a mother and a daughter. They have a shitty life in Chicago. Her mother that she doesn't even want to see, she finds out she's dead, so she travels to this place because she finds out she inherits her house, and the town's a little weird, a little quirky. Now, this is a common trope we see in horror films. We just recently saw it last week in Stillwater #1. So I want to see where it goes further from here. I wish I would have sat down and read issue #2, but I just wanted to jump on and tell you that Autumnal is A really great first issue to a point, but it doesn't completely hook me in and grab me and make me want to come back for issue number 2. And that's something that's been going on with Vault Books, is that it's taking me 2 issues to really get super engaged, and I think that's why they're sending us reviewers and retailers the first 2 issues. If we could find a way to get it all into one, I think that would be very beneficial. Let's jump over to the Engine Ward. I can't talk tonight. Engine Ward number 3, the best issue of this series yet. They have committed to at least 12 issues of this series, and it shows. Number 1 was pretty decent. Like I said, just like a lot of Vault launches, number 1 was good, but it didn't grab a lot of us. Issue number 2 is where we started getting grabbed. Issue number 3 is where it's not letting me go. I love this issue. The story is settling down. We get the gist of the journey now, and I'm freaking loving it. It's about the society that's been built. Ancient Earth is a myth now. Earth is an ancient myth. That's what it says, right? And the remnants of Earth, they've now, it's like, who knows, hundreds, thousands of years later, and they're ruled by these 12 gods, these celestials that are based on the zodiac, right? And you find out, and some of the characters find out, that it's all a sham, it's all a lie, and this is not how it's supposed to be. And now we get the quest going, and we have the 2 opposing forces working against each other, and it really solidifies in issue number 3, and I really liked it. I thought it was great. Shadow Service number 2, wow. I loved the first issue, thought it was solid, but it was the second issue that really grabbed me and felt like the story really started getting going. This is basically about a magician, private detective, call her a witch if you will, and she's kind of like that hard-boiled detective, very cliche crime fiction type thing, but with the magical element, and then the element that there's a spy service, basically, that wants to recruit her to do a mission, but she's not all about that. And you get some great character work in here, some great artwork, some great concepts, and I'm really liking it. I think in issue number 2, it really pulls itself in. It becomes very cohesive. It becomes very intriguing, very engaging, and I'm ready to see what's going to happen in future issues of Shadow Service. Shadow Service number 2, pretty solid. From Aftershock, we got a new one called Miles to Go. This one was kind of surprising to me. I was really surprised by this book. So this book is about, how do I describe it? It's about a woman who was raised to be like an assassin or some kind of badass. Now she's trying to lead a normal life. She's got her own difficulties, and the story just ramps up, and it just gets crazy. You don't 100% know fully what's all going on, but it's got an ending that makes you go, man, I got to come back to issue number 2, because it's just intriguing, just engaging enough that with the hook and the cliffhanger they give you at the end of the last page really brings me in. Maybe it's a trick, maybe it's not going to be that fulfilling, but so far I really liked it, and I thought this book was pretty freaking decent. From Aftershock Comics, Miles to Go number 1. I did like that book. I thought it was really cool. Canto 2, The Hollow Men, issue number 2. If you like Kanto, you're going to love this book. This book is so great. It's a simple book, but it is also an incredibly resonating book. Issue number 2 was great. You get the idea of what the Hollow Men is actually about in here. It's a great plight now that Kanto and his friends are going to have to go up against. Another hero's journey, another savior's tale, and I'm loving it. You got some nice creepy bits in here. This book just goes straight to the heart of story, straight to the heart of the matter. And that's why this resonates so well. It's so simple, but simple doesn't mean, you know, sophomoric or freshman-like or anything like that. It's less is more, right? And we usually always say that about artwork, less is more. But no, in the story, less can be more too. Kanto is exactly the reason why that adage holds true today. And it's because this is a very simple story, but because it's so simple, there is nothing left out that is not 100% utterly necessary to pierce into your collective unconscious soul and mind of everybody out there. It just resonates. And it does in issue number 2, and I loved it. Canto 2, issue number 2, out this week. From Heavy Metal, we got a couple more. We got Brooklyn Gladiator number 1. I almost didn't read this because I kind of looked through it and I was like, you know, I'm not the biggest Simon Bisley fan or whatever. And it just kind of looks like, no offense, but trash, right? But whatever. I was like, it's my job to read these things to let you know if I liked it. Y'all, sleeper hit of the week right here. Brooklyn Gladiators. Wow. Confusing, esoteric, ridiculous, great concepts, crazy, artwork that's in your face. It's subversive. It breaks all the rules. It holds nothing back, and I freaking loved it. I loved it. You got a crazy sci-fi world. You got really interesting concepts. All of a sudden, the characters like traveling on the astral plane. It feels disjointed, but incredibly engaging all at the same time. This book blew me away. If you like some of my more esoteric or weird picks, I think you might want to try to find this one. Brooklyn Gladiator #1, pretty solid. Fishkill #1 from Heavy Metal Comics. This is the one I thought I would really like, as opposed to Brooklyn Gladiator, and I liked it. I thought it was decent. It's got Ben Templesmith artwork. That's a big draw for me. I'm a big fan of Templesmith's artwork, so if you like his artwork, definitely pick it up. Outside of that, it's an okay story. It's decent. It doesn't do quite enough to completely hook you, but it gets involved in conspiracy theories and ideas. It's referencing 9/11. It's about this detective who doesn't really respect authority, can't really handle authority very well. He was there on 9/11. He's got his conspiracy theories about that, and then he gets thrown into the middle of this new attack on New York, and then that's kind of the gist of the issue. So there's a lot more to really hook us in. Templesmith's artwork, though, is great. So last week, Heavy Metal had a book that I just thought was completely incomprehensible, but these two were pretty good. This one was decent with some really great artwork, but this one really kind of surprised me and blew me away. And I think even if you read this and you're like, wow, Robbie really liked that, I think that might even surprise you, but I freaking loved it. Skull Digger and Skeleton Boy #4, that's right, the world of Black Hammer is back, and I'm so excited. Jeff Lemire continuing what he's been doing with this series, doing a great nod and tribute to the dark ages of comic books, the Punisher influence stuff, the Frank Miller influence stuff. There's some direct homages and tributes to Frank Miller in this issue that I absolutely love. The story hits the point of no return, and I absolutely love it. I thought it was great. It's been a long time since we've had a Skull Digger and Skeleton Boy or any book from the Black Hammer universe, but Dark Horse is back, baby, and so is Black Hammer, and I couldn't be more thrilled and exciting, and that was a fantastic cover. But not the cover of the week. ADW gave us Archangel 8, #5. This is the final issue. I'm a big fan of Michael Morisi. This is not my favorite Michael Morisi book, but issue #5 really ties it all together. You get 100% the idea of who Archangel 8 is, what his mission is, what Michael did, and how it's all tied together and why it's important. It took the entire series to really get us there, and maybe that was a bit of a problem, but having read issue #5, I'm very much looking forward now to reading the entire series to see how it flows all as one story in one sitting. Archangel 8, though, the final issue was pretty decent. AWA's been cranking out some great, cool content, some interesting takes on familiar stories. This is one of them. I thought it was an original idea. I like the gritty, textured artwork. I like everything about it. It just wasn't as good as I think it could have been. Because Michael Morisi, I think, has done some amazing work, especially on Wasted Space and the plot with Tim Daniel. But Archangel 8 was good and solid, and I can't wait to review the trade paperback when it comes out. And the final book I want to talk about is the cover of the week. And I don't always point out my cover of the week, but I definitely had to this week because it's so obvious. It's Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Something Wicked #3. Holy freaking cow, y'all, that cover. That cover blows me away. The color choice, the design and composition of it, it is absolutely brilliant and amazing. Oh, I love it. The issue itself is pretty great, too. Kelly Thompson's doing a great job with Sabrina right now. If you're like me, and you're a Kelly Thompson fan, but her work on Captain Marvel is okay, but a bit inconsistent, and Black Widow was decent, but you don't know if that's really going to scratch that itch that you miss from her Hawkeye series or Jim and the Holograms, it's all right there. That magic still exists, no pun intended, in Sabrina the Teenage Witch. This book is great. I've been enjoying it. I've been liking it. I love Veronica Fish's artwork. Her cover there is so freaking brilliant. It blows me away. I like it. Kelly Thompson's becoming a better, stronger writer, being less verbose, letting the images tell more of the story, but still getting her point across, and having that subtext and that nuance there that keeps the story relevant as well as fun and free and loose and a bit dark, and I'm loving it. That cover, though, cover of the week. So that's what I read. That's what I thought about it. What are you reading? What are you digging? What's your cover of the week? What's your favorite book of the week? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for your support of this channel. You can go further in your support at patreon.com/PCP and unlock exclusive content and early access, like early access to this video before it drops on YouTube, you have a downloadable audio-only file that's available hours before the video comes out, only to our Patreon supporters, and it's available as little as $1 a month. Anyway, there you go. You can also just like, share, subscribe, and join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcast blogs and a whole lot more. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading.